Recording.
Hi, welcome to our garden. This is what we've been doing all spring and summer. I'm Gary, Alex is the photographer. I'm going to start right up here. This is the rhubarb patch. I just moved it this spring from down at the house where it was too shady. It's doing really well. And I'm going to be picking it pretty soon and make a couple of rhubarb pies. And then just beyond the rhubarb patch is the asparagus. We haven't done any work in the garden for a few days because it's been hot and rainy. It's getting weedy again, but it's doing pretty well. We got asparagus early in June, and then we stopped picking because the bed wasn't really doing that well, so we're letting it grow, and it'll be good next year. Over here, we have a huge raspberry patch. It starts here, it goes all the way down. It's about, these posts are 20 feet apart, so the raspberry patch is about 40 feet long, and it's about 14 feet wide. We've probably got one picking or two pickings left this year, but we've picked a couple of times already and frozen quite a few raspberries. And then in here, starting to get weedy out the edges, but in the middle you can see this is the strawberry patch. Of course, this was June berries, so we had berries from about the middle of June till about the 4th of July. We froze quite a few. It's doing pretty well. Moving over this way, we have the vine crops. This patch here is a butternut squash. And if we look down in, we can see some of them starting to get big and nice already.
I forgot how you zoomed.
A little button on top.
Oh.
So that's all butternut squash. We're going to have way too many of those. I'm going to contact the food shelves and see if they can use any of our extra produce because I don't want to do a farmer's market thing. In the background is just decoration. We've got Tithonia, which is Mexican sunflower, and then regular sunflowers. The next vine crop here is melon. This is the Athena melon. You can see I've got one here that looks like it's getting pretty close to being ready to pick. Got a couple other nice big ones coming along, and there are tons of little ones, so there's going to be a huge melon crop once they start to ripen. Then zucchini and summer squash. Of course, as everybody does, we have way more than we need of these, and they're getting a little too big already. But we had quite a few zucchini and summer squash already this spring that we ate. And then next along is, this is going to be an ornamental pumpkin, kind of like a gourd, I think, although I don't know exactly what they're going to be. But whatever they are, they're starting to form. And then finally the cucumbers. We've been eating cucumbers already, and I'm guessing, yeah, there's going to be plenty more cucumbers ready to go. There'll be steady cucumbers now for the whole season. And again, there'll be cucumbers enough for the food shelf should they want some. Just starting, we've had cucumbers for about a week, so they're really just getting started. But here's a couple more that we'll have for dinner. And then further down is an acorn squash, and I won't go down there. We'll take a look at the row crops starting over on the far side. You might notice we've got a nice fence 10 feet high along the road in the far end and 6 feet high on the rest. Keeps the deer out. And then I thought we'd have rabbit problems, but we haven't, so I haven't had to do anything more about the rabbits. Starting on the very end, we have lettuce, which is now already going to seed, but we're still eating lettuce from this patch, and there's another patch over here. Peas are already done. Just the vines are still up, but the pea season is over. We got a few crops of those. Beets, we've eaten a couple of meals of beets already, but we have nice baby beets or medium-sized beets ready to eat. So whenever we want another meal of beets, we'll have beets. This is Blue Lake green bean. At first I had a little fence up about this high because I knew they were going to climb, and then I realized how much they were going to climb, so I put this 6-foot high fence in, and you can see they're just really taking over. This plant here is, I have to look at the label, this is Brussels sprouts, and we have a lot of them, and down inside here they're just starting to grow the little buds that will be the sprout. The Brussels sprouts actually grow where the leaf intersects with the stem, so there'll be a stem loaded with Brussels sprouts. And this is mostly Brussels sprouts in this row. Right behind Alex here is cabbage, and this one is going to get brought back with us now for coleslaw. These we grew from seed, and so we have a whole half a row of cabbage here that are ready to go. Alex is going to try and make some sauerkraut maybe, or else we might just freeze some of it. Then we have our row of peppers. The first several peppers are just green bell peppers. They're in flower. Oh, there's actually a pepper almost ready, but not quite. There's another little one. So we'll have peppers in another week or so. And then following that, we have Anaheim. We had one off of this plant already. And then we have poblano, which are a little hotter, and they're starting to come out already too. That's the peppers. Next to the peppers, we have another green bean. This one is tenderette green bean. I think that's a burpee. It's full of blossoms, so there'll be beans coming. And then this last bean over here is pinto beans, which we just grew on a whim out of a bag of pinto beans in the pantry that came from the grocery store. And they're a climber too, so I put fence up for them. And then beyond that is a row of carrots. I won't go into that. Down in front here is bunching onions. Those are your little green onions that we'll just pull and eat any time now. They're ready to go. Further down here is another two kinds of lettuce, Butter Crunch lettuce and Simpson lettuce. And those are ready to eat. We're eating them regularly. Looking down here at Alex's feet, this is kind of Alex's experiment. It's celery. I don't know what we're going to get out of it, if anything, but that's a row of celery. And then, as we said, this is Brussels sprouts through here, but beyond the Brussels sprouts are kohlrabi, which we like a lot. It's like a mild rutabaga, and this is the edible part here, this big bulb. We've eaten 3 already for a meal, and we've got a couple more ready to go and coming along, so we'll have some more meals of kohlrabi. Over here is the first row of carrots that I put in. That row over there was a later row, so we have carrots really ready to go here, all ready for a meal, and we'll probably have carrots maybe even tonight. I'll just pick some of these, and we'll have carrots for dinner, fresh carrots. Moving down a little further, beyond the Brussels sprouts, in this part of the row, these are cauliflowers, and while they're starting to bunch up inside, I don't think that we can see the little bud of the cauliflower head actually beginning, but that's going to be the cauliflower head forming in there. I'm going to ask Alex to step over and we'll take a look at the onion rows. I might mention over here, this is Swiss chard. We've had a meal of that. We're going to start freezing it now because it's well along. Swiss chard is a great alternative to spinach. It doesn't bolt, it tolerates hot temperatures, but it tastes and cooks and is used pretty much just like spinach, and we like it a lot. And then beyond here, we have our 2 rows of onions, the first row being yellow onions, the second row is mostly white with a few yellow at the end. And we've been eating onions out of the garden already now. We won't have to buy any onions. You can see how nice and beautiful these white ones are. I try to keep the dirt up on them to keep them from turning green. That's why you can see they're mounted up. But we're eating onions, and we'll have onions all winter out of these 2 rows. Then we've got the tomato crop, which is here and up there. If you just pan over there, there's 3 tomatoes at the end of the pepper, but they're similar. There's a couple of Romas in here that were planted late, but this is the amazing thing. This tomato right here is 1 cherry tomato plant, and it's that huge, and it has tons of cherry tomatoes on it, with just a few starting to get ripe now, and they'll start to get ripe a lot sooner now that there's lots of them going. But they're just, oh, I picked a green one. They're just really, really nice. No pesticides, nothing used on them, so you can just eat them right off the vine, and they're so sweet. There's another one. And you might notice we've got irrigation heads. I've got 5 heads which cover pretty much all the garden, and each one has its own valve, so I can run any combination of them at a time. And so it makes the garden pretty much not dependent on the rainfall itself. These are 2 tomato plants. There's 2 more up there like them. And these are your regular tomatoes. I forget which one these are. We did get these from plants at the local garden center, just little plants. But they're really doing well. And we should have tomatoes starting to ripen. I mean, look at those tomatoes. They should be starting to ripen pretty soon. And we're going to have so many tomatoes. We are going to can some, but we'll have tomatoes to give away too. And then the only other thing that we haven't looked at is the potatoes. We have 4 rows of potatoes. First row is red. Then there's a russet. There's a Yukon Gold, and the last row is a mix of whatever we had left of each of those. But we've already been eating tomatoes out of the garden.
Potatoes.
Potatoes, Alex corrects me. They tend to grow up above the soil, so we keep them covered.
Uncover it.
That's just a little one. Go up here and see what we have. So they're already getting to be big. We can pick whatever size we want. If we want little babies for boiling, you can take them, or for sauteing, but we have full-size potatoes too. So again, we'll keep these in the garage in sand. The garage generally stays above freezing, and we'll have potatoes to last us the whole winter. So that's the vegetable garden. That's the acorn squash there.
Is that it? Done?
That's it. So this is just a long view. As I mentioned, these posts are 20 feet apart, so we have about 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, about 140 feet long, and it's about 40 or 50 feet wide. Not everything is in cultivation, of course, but a lot of it is. And every year we have brought in compost or something to improve the soil. That's why everything is so good. And because we're in Sherburne County, which is sand, it's so easy to work. There are no rocks whatsoever. And of course the real problem is weeds, but we just work on them. So here's what we picked for tonight and the next couple of days. We got half a dozen cucumbers. One is big enough to go for the chickens probably. A head of cabbage, a little bit of lettuce, a nice onion, and enough carrots for tonight's meal.